Popcorn World. Popcorn World. Yeah. Can I make you move now? Yes, I can. So you can get this move in a bag of a can. You can make it round the world when it holds in your hand. Popcorn World. 250 flavors gonna make you smile. 250 flavors gonna make you smile. 250 flavors gonna make you smile. I said popcorn make you smile. Ah. Popcorn World. Popcorn World. Popcorn World. It's a popcorn world. The popcorn world.
Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Hey y'all, it's your man Lloyd Spence, and look, you can find all of the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA and NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, fights, and even next season's NFL futures, all at BetOnline, because BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. So, very easy. It's very, very easy. All you have to do is go to the website today and use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BLEAV, B-L-E-A-V, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just go to BetOnline. It's where the game starts.
You're now listening to BLEAV in the ACC with Heisman Trophy winner and Florida State legend, Mr. Charlie Ward, Wave 3 TV, and Fern Creek Hall of Famer Kendrick Haskins, and Mr. Talking Noise himself, and of course Mama Noise's man, Lloyd Smith. And now, it's time for BLEAV in the ACC.
We are back after a small little hiatus, vacation. Okay, it wasn't a vacation. None of us were vacating. It was just, we weren't here. But we're back. We got better sound. So that's something. We're all excited. That's something else.
Charlie
Ward is here. Charlie, like he's ready for a mafia business meeting. Can you hear us, Charlie? Oh, no, we talked about better sound, and then Charlie can't hear us. Okay, Charlie, can you go back out and come back in? Can you see my go back out, come back in, go back out, come back in? Can you see my?
I don't know the sign language.
Oh, something just happened. I heard him knock something around.
Well, I took my earplugs out. Let me see if this work again.
Try it again, Charlie. You sound great now. I mean,
okay. I hear you.
There we go. There we go. See, we just needed a second. We just need a second to get it. We promised the people good sound, and that's what we're going to give them.
Okay.
All right? That's what we're going to give them. It's great to see everybody. We got hopefully a really interesting show, impactful show, just in thought and in concept today. On BLEAV in the ACC. It's kind of a hodgepodge of things to discuss. Because we've been gone for a little while. Last time we were here, we were talking about the draft. Now the draft has passed us by, and it was an interesting one for the ACC. A lot of interesting players were selected. Some fan favorites here on this show were selected and have to home.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our picks were selected.
A lot of our picks absolutely were selected.
Including Sam Howell.
Yes.
Yes, Sam Howell was selected.
Is he going to the Commodores?
Yes,
Apparently, the only meat he eats is chicken. You see this one?
I saw that, that is the weirdest story ever. But we definitely got to get into that. Let's run through it real quick. In the first round, the first ACC player went off at number 6. I can never pronounce this kid's name.
Aquanu.
See, this is why we have Charlie Ward around for things like this.
You can say Clemson's quarterback, but you can't say that.
You're right. I haven't spent as much time with this one as I have with Clemson. But he went off to the Panthers at number 6, number 17. Zion Johnson from Boston College went to the Chargers, which I thought was a little high, but whatever. The dog seems to approve. Maybe the most shocking pick of the first round, Kenny Pickett, went to the Steelers.
Why?
At number 20. I just didn't think he was going to be the guy to go first, quarterback to go first. In my opinion, I didn't think he was, but he did.
Well,
I felt like if a quarterback hadn't been picked by the time the Steelers picked, I figured it was probably going to be him.
You thought it was going to be Pickett? Wow, okay.
They kept him in the same city.
They kept him in the same city. Well,
Same
and I think I think that's one of the reasons why they did it is because they knew him. They'd seen him. They've seen him all season. So why take a risk on a guy you've never really, you don't have as much information on. So, and then maybe the most surprising steal, in my opinion, came from the Jets at number 26 with my fan favorite, Jermaine Johnson, going to the Jets at number 26. I thought that was a steal of a pick.
The Jets did pretty good in the draft.
I think the Jets did amazing in the draft. I know people don't want to claim. We're not allowed to claim Notre Dame because technically they're independent in football. But we are claiming Kyle Hamilton as an ACC pick.
He played in the championship game.
I'm just saying.
2 years ago.
I'm just saying.
His
Charlie.
signature play came in the ACC game down in Tallahassee. I can't remember who they were playing.
You can't listen. You're not going to date her.
Whitney says she doesn't approve of that.
She didn't like the Kyle Hamilton pick. Okay.
Yeah, she didn't like that comment that was just made by Mr. Kendrick Haskins.
He snuck one in. True to form, he snuck one in. He absolutely did. Some other picks of note in the second round, Andrew Booth went to the Vikings. Andrew Booth from Clemson. In the third round, we took Joshua, we being the Giants, took Joshua Izudu. I have that name down. From North Carolina. Jelani Woods went.
You know how bad I was hoping the Giants would take Sam Howell.
My team is smarter than that now. Not always. Listen, historically, in the last 10 years, that would have been true. But lately we've been this was a good draft for us as well. So in the fourth round, Damari Mathis went to the Broncos from Pittsburgh. Zach Tom went to Wake Forest. And of course, Kendrick's and Charlie's deep man crush, Sam Howell, went to the Commanders in the fifth round. I guess to me that was the most Washington thing to do is to take Sam Howell. That's on brand for me. Was not surprised by that.
I don't think that myself or Charlie have a deep crush on Sam Howell. We just like the
just like messing with me. Well, duly noted.
Also, the GM for the Commodores is from Florida State.
Why you keep calling the Commodores? You just not like Commanders?
The Commodores is funnier.
If Commodores is way funnier. Let me just be clear.
Lionel Richie and those, I like them better.
Okay, well listen.
Commanders. We
can set a hard and fast rule for this show that hereforward they are the Commodores, the Washington Commodores. And they are easy to beat like Sunday morning. How's that?
There you go.
It's said and it is done.
Ty Chandler, the running back from North Carolina, went to the Vikings. Marcus McKeithen, we took him to the Giants. We just like North Carolina guy. But from what I understand, there's actually a relationship there where
again, that's what surprises me.
Yeah. There's a relationship there, so I get it. James Mitchell to the Lions and tight end. The 6th round, Amari Barno from Virginia Tech went to the Panthers. Luke Tenuta went to the Bills from Virginia Tech. Ja'Sir Taylor went to the Chargers from Wake Forest. These names are amazing. Lecitus Smith went to the Cardinals from Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech had a good 6th round. And then wrapping it all up, Tariq Carpenter from Georgia Tech went to the Packers. Balin Spector from Clemson went to the Bills. Jonathan Ford went to the Packers from Miami. And Trenton Gill to the Bears from NC State. So that is the ACC draft, as it were. 21 players in all from the ACC went into this year's draft. Which one was the more impressive, or not impressive, but which one do you think is a good fit and you like the most out of those guys?
Probably Johnson at the Jets.
But I mean, I think all of them. I mean, as far as not all of them, but the top picks anyway.
Yeah.
I think are good fits because the Panthers need somebody to block.
Desperately.
And so, I think that was a good pick. Offensive lineman. He's a solid player. And Jermaine, of course, a lot of people thought he dropped, but I mean, you dropped to where I always say, Jets is a team in transition. Seemed like they were always in transition, but
perpetual transition.
Yeah, but hopefully they can keep a coach around, keep a GM, and continue to draft well, and the young guys, play well. But it's heartening to see. Like I was in New York for quite some time, and to see the Giants and the Jets, and even the Knicks, everybody's going through these instability transitions. I mean, they haven't figured that part out. So again,
well,
even Brooklyn's about to be.
Oh, they're in the same.
They seem like they're in transition too.
I think the challenge of what is taking place in New York, well, it's ironic that the Jets and the Giants are kind of going through the same thing, which is they've lost. Well, I don't know if the Jets are that. I know for the Giants for sure, they lost their identity as a culture of what they were. Historically, the Giants have been defense, run the ball, some passing, but we're going to win on the defensive side of the ball. And somehow, in the midst of that, or in the midst of the transition of time, we lost the complete identity of the team, which I get because that's what happens in football. The trends come and you see people doing certain things, and you're not able to keep up with what you do. So you say, well, maybe we should change. So you start chasing the latest trends and you lose who you are. And now this draft for me was kind of getting back to that. They were like, okay, let's go get the edge rush that we need. Let's go get the lineman that we need. We're going to win this game in the trenches. And so they did. So I say that to say maybe that's what everybody was doing in the Jets, same thing. The Jets seem to have a very specific draft. And I was like, wow, they're really like locked in. Like they're getting the guys they need as opposed to chasing. Because they kept saying before the draft, we're going to take the best available, which is one of the scariest things to say. Because just because you're taking the best available don't mean he's fitting any need that you have on your team. But that's not what they did. So that was really I was very happy with how the draft turned out.
The best thing that happened to the Giants, which was unfortunate for me because I loved when he was there because he was so bad, was them getting rid of Gettleman. I wanted him to stay forever.
Sure you did. Sure you did.
who do you root for?
I'm a Cowboys fan.
He's a Cowboys fan.
Their draft was just we'll see.
And his owner is going to stay forever.
Oh yeah, he's too honored to go away.
Forever.
So misery loves company. So I love that we get over.
I totally understand. I'll say this. I thought everybody in that first round, with the exception of Pickett, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I thought Malik Willis' upside was greater. I could be wrong, but I felt like his upside is greater.
He fits the mold more of what quarterbacks are looking like today, but
not Pittsburgh.
But Pickett is a.
And that's this. Yeah. I think that was just a situational thing. If Pittsburgh didn't need a quarterback, then I think the kid from Liberty goes first. But Pittsburgh needed a quarterback. He's in the backyard, and he kind of fits that mold. He kind of looks like Roethlisberger when Roethlisberger first came into the league before the weight game. But I just think that was a situational thing more than it was his skill set's better than his skill set.
Well, and think about this as well. Kenny Pickett is not going to be asked to do much.
He's not going to be asked to run to the sideline. To
We didn't even lock it up this time.
I should have known this was coming at some point.
I'm just saying, he's going to be so excited that he can stand in the huddle and get to play.
Is there going to be an adjustment, Charlie?
That's going to be a huge adjustment.
It's a huge adjustment for him.
I want to be very clear. The first time he runs to the sideline for anything, I'm literally calling you on the phone that day.
He might do it out of habit, not even to do it anymore.
he might go autopilot.
Right. Look, you created such a mindset about it. Even the listeners are like, I knew that was coming. Shout out to Jacob Payne. I really like. I don't know. I don't know if I don't love the Kenny Pickett thing. But I don't. I have not.
You also got to think they also kind of leery with the ghost of Dan Marino. Pittsburgh guy, born and raised in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They don't get him,
and they let him out the city. Yeah. So,
but what do you don't like about him? Because I think he's fine. He's a solid quarterback. I mean, for him to do what he did at Pitt, not saying that Pitt's a bad. I mean, he had the top receiver as well.
So therein lies where my not issue is, but my challenge of taking him at that spot. I think it's where they took him that really makes me go, because do you take a kid who is not going to mess up, or do you take a kid who potentially could be great? In the first round, does it make sense? Like if they had taken him in the fifth, like Sam Howell, I'm like, oh, perfect pick.
No. Pickett he's a first round quarterback. I mean, if you start thinking about all the quarterbacks that have gone 1 and 2 and 3, earlier, he's very similar. This year, it just didn't fall that way for the teams that were choosing because they didn't need quarterbacks. But I think Pickett, is a guy. We said it throughout the season, though, that he's a guy that you can trust. You knew he's going to bring each and every game, and he was basically carrying his team. I mean, he made decisions to run the ball, put him in good situations, and so I just thought he was a solid quarterback. I'm not saying that Malik Willis is not. I just, as we've seen, taking a quarterback is not a guaranteed thing. But you have to, as I go back and say, you have to start looking at characteristics as opposed to just straight talent. because the characteristics that he brings is very, very similar to what they're accustomed to. And like you said, they watched him because they've seen him, in the same city basically, and the same stadium. And so I just think it was a good pickup for them because they need a quarterback.
Yeah. And also quietly, I thought the Ravens getting Kyle Hamilton was nice. That worked out. But I know Lamar is not happy, but
that situation is kind of weird.
Well, it is, but
I feel like Hollywood Brown kind of stabbed Lamar in the back on that one.
Well, he absolutely stabbed him in the back. But I think it may work out to their favor because they're not. I don't know if with Lamar, if they're ever going to be this dynamic, we throw the ball down the field, Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills type team. I think they're a running, smash mouth football team. And they've again historically won by defense. That's what they've done. So I think they're getting back to their real identity by not going after guys that they don't necessarily have to have.
Well, you need receivers.
You do need a receiver.
Okay, what kind of style you have in the NFL? You need some good receivers. But they did stock up on tight ends, right?
They got tight ends. They got running backs.
They got receivers on the
roster. hey, they got tight ends. They got running backs aplenty. And there's still some receivers out there in free agency that they can still go get. One in particular that I think they should go get is Jarvis Landry. I mean, he's sitting out there waiting on somebody to call him. So why not? I mean, for what you want him to do, he might be perfect for everything that they need. I don't know. But
Odell.
Well, Odell, the only problem with Odell, you're not going right. You're not going to see him until January.
I do like Jarvis Landry, and I feel like he's not going to take the top off the defense. They need another receiver who can do that. But yeah, I mean, mix those. You get Jarvis Landry. I think he'd be really good in that system. And like I said, if you get another receiver who's a speedster, you know what I'm saying, who's a deep threat.
Well, that's what Rashad Bateman is supposed to be.
Mixed with the 17 tight ends.
Listen, why are we hating them for having a 4 tight end package?
They drafted 3 of them. They drafted 3 of them back to back.
Listen,
they already had 4 good.
Because they need blocking. They're going to run the ball down your throat from everywhere. And I think they're going to convert those running backs into receivers in some form or fashion.
They're going to be like the Packers with Paul Horning. That's what their offense does.
Exactly.
Star.
Exactly. But interesting, very interesting draft to say the least. Okay, let's jump. I'm ready to get into this other thing because I'm ready to hear this epic rant that I think might be coming from Charlie Ward today. This has been in the last couple of weeks. This has been very interesting. Listen, I've been with you for almost 2 years now. I kind of know where this is going. So in the last couple of years, we've seen some of the most challenging shifts in college football that we've ever seen. And they've come in the combination of the transfer portal coupled with now name, image, and likeness, also known as the NIL. And this year, it's kind of funny because all these articles keep coming about it. They broke a record for a transfer portal. Well, come on now. The transfer portal, as it is currently constructed, has only been around 1.5 years, 2 years. So of course they broke a record. People are just figuring out what the heck it is. But there were 2,600 kids in the transfer portal or are in the transfer portal. What's interesting is that now coaches are complaining because of the combination of transfer portal and NIL. And they're saying these kids are being offered some deals quietly, and this ain't right. One in particular is a coach that our Kendrick Haskins covers quite often. Now, I'll be honest with you, the story that this receiver was paid or offered a deal by Alabama is bizarre to me. The first time I heard, I was like, "This makes no sense."
It's
Because
bizarre
why
to
would
me too.
Alabama
Because
offer anybody anything other than a scholarship?
Hold up. Alabama is no different than all the rest of them. Let's
Right.
get that straight.
Okay,
Alabama's,
all right.
And Charlie, I mean, I'm 100% agree with you. That's not what I was surprised about that they offered. I'm surprised that they offered that kid. That kid's barely played at U of L. He's been there
That's
for
what I
4
was.
years.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Well, that was the other. Go ahead, Charlie.
I was like, who is the kid?
I was wondering where are these highlights that I'm missing from the dominance on the football field that he showed to be offered anything.
He's a speedster. I mean, he was the fastest player on the team. He's been the fastest player on the team since he's been on the roster, but he hadn't seen the field until last year. No significant time. He had a couple of good games, but he got hurt. And so I'm like, does it surprise me that Alabama offered somebody money? No, but that they offered that kid a significant amount of money. I don't know what they saw to make an offer, but
yeah.
But at the same time, would you be surprised if he goes there and turns into Jones or something?
No, and the easy, quick answer to that is no, because and maybe that's why Coach Satterfield is offended, because
he's offended because he needed him. U of L needed him, but I mean,
Alabama
it's always
wanted
something shady.
I just wouldn't have poked the bear like that. I would just kept it probably mainstream instead of trying to call somebody out, and especially if you weren't 100% sure on the tampering deal, because I saw an article where he said he wasn't sure about it, and man, let's just call it for what it is. These guys are being tampered with, especially if you're on a team that's not doing very well. I know Coach Norvell talked about some of his players being offered opportunities, and at the ACC meetings this past week, I think it was. And this is happening all over the place. Everybody's players are getting tampered. And when we talk about tampering, this is very similar to, and people saying, well, we didn't do this. You're doing it, because if I had Kendrick go and talk to someone from Louisville, and to play on my team,
that's tampering.
That's tampering.
Yeah.
I mean, because Kendrick and I have a relationship. I don't have to talk to the kid or his parents, but that is what's going on. Essentially,
it's the same plausible deniability.
I was just thinking that.
It's the same plot when they say, "I'm not looking into a job because
I'm not looking into the job."
Yeah, that person's not, but your agent is.
Right.
Same thing.
But let me just say this. I believe there was a podcast that talked about this prior to and said this is exactly what's going to happen. So this is not surprising to us in any way. And let's just be honest. Unless there is a tremendous rule change coming down the pike, which there won't be, because despite the complaints of several big name coaches like Dabo and others, I don't think there's an end in sight, because the ketchup's out the bottle. I don't know how do you back this up
and plus, it's not like we're talking about the strongest of entities when it comes to the NCAA anyway. They can't enforce anything. Look how long it takes them to make any kind of decision on anything, which is why Congress is getting involved in their nonsense. And so, like you said, the ketchup out of the bottle, there's no going back. Now they're talking about retroactively punishing teams for NIL stuff that wasn't a rule when they was doing it. So how are you gonna punish them now?
Right.
Well,
NCAAs.
I think you can. I think you can do that part with the booster collectives. I think you can still regulate that piece of it. Of course, people they still have to do it the same way they did with booster payments or paying players or whatever the case may be for enticement and what have you. And so I think what you started to see was a boldness.
Oh yeah, they're in your face doing it. Yeah.
Yes, that's what you started to see. Like people just saying, "Yes, this is what we're doing." Like there's no sugarcoating it, trying to hide it. You know, we're offering such and such this, and it started to come out in the news that this kid was making $8 million still in high school. You know, just that type of boldness, I think, is what the NCAA and all the other people who are making these decisions said. This is just getting out of hand.
Well, I'll tell you the most glowing thing that pops up to my mind right now is the the unbelievable way the Isaiah Wong situation played out in Miami. I mean, that happened in real time, and he's like, "I'm not coming back."
I hadn't heard anything else about it because I was.
From what I understand, he's staying, right?
Yeah, he's staying.
He's staying because
he's staying.
Well, and then the guy who I guess the booster or whoever did the deal with him, they're like, we're not renegotiating.
Right.
And the fact that I know that you're not renegotiating is kind of a problem. Like, why are y'all playing this out in the media? So,
yeah.
But that's kind of what you're talking about, Charlie.
Yes.
We're privy to something that's supposed to be this private moment of conversation, and we know everything about it.
That's why I said they had to come out with something because it became just too bold. Like it was willy-nilly, like it's okay to have these pay-for-play type of schemes when that's not, quote unquote, what the intent of NIL was for. But now, as we've said, time when this happened, that this could be an issue. And now, as we saw with Isaiah Wong at Miami, someone got paid more than he did. And they know it. And now he wants to hold out and all these different types of things. I think we're at the forefront of just seeing how bad this can be. Who's going to be the first player to hold out from their season,
right?
Because they didn't get the NIL deal that they were promised.
Right,
it's coming.
It is coming.
Yeah, it's inevitable. Yeah,
it is coming.
It started with the bowl players, and so when they first started doing it, everybody was like, "Oh, okay, this is just a one-off." Well, as we see today, it's not a one-off.
Right.
I mean, people are, COVID moved the needle a little bit further to where now they're taking off the season to go prepare for the NFL draft or the draft or whatever, whatever the case may be. And so this thing is just going to keep moving, and we're just going to figure out who's going to be the first one to hold out from a season, just like the NFL, NBA. No, not really NBA, but the NFL for sure. Who's going to hold out because of contract negotiations?
Well, no, I think I know that was a Freudian slip of NBA, but I think you're going to see it transfer to every single one of the sports. I don't think there's going to be a place in the NCAA where you're not going to feel this.
But the NBA contract structure, the way it's structured, there is no holdout.
Say it again.
The way the NBA is structured, there is no holdouts. Just the way
your money is guaranteed. So
right, but what I'm saying is the choice of being able to make the money, because you don't have to wait to make the money anymore. That's what we're really talking about. I don't have to go to the NBA to make the money. I can make $5 million if I'm a 5-star top 10 prospect and potential prospect to the NBA draft, either in my after my freshman year or sophomore year, I can make $10 million right coming out of high school. And so I don't have to wait. I can make that money right out the gate. But if you're promised me this money to come to school A, and then all of a sudden you get squeamish because you think you're doing something or you shouldn't have done it or whatever, well, then I will hold out, or I'll go to overtime, or I'll go to the G League and transition that way. I think this is going to get way murkier before it gets cleaner. And it may never get clean at this point. They may have opened up the Pandora's box, and this is just what it is. And maybe the only fix is to create that what has been threatened for years now, is to create this new thing with the Power Fives, and now they can set up maybe the right boundaries for all of it. So I don't know, but we're in a weird place right now.
I mean, like Charlie said, everything.
See, the dogs agree with me again.
Like Charlie said, everything sped up with COVID. So like everything that's happening was going to happen inevitably anyway. It just got sped up with COVID.
Right, we had time.
But yeah, and I think eventually, because like I said, the NCAA, they're losing their grip on power every day, and so eventually the power, like you said, the Power Five is going to take over. And I feel sorry for the mid majors of the world, the Western Kentuckys, the Murray States.
They're gonna feel it.
Yeah, I mean, so those are the ones who are going to get left out of all of this, because eventually the Power Five is going to be fed up and they're going to do what they want. They're going to set their own parameters, and that's going to be it.
Well, let me stay there for a second for both of you, because it feels like football is what is driving all of this.
Yeah.
But basketball is. So let's separate them for just a second. Is there a way to build the Power Five, whatever that's going to be, without damaging March Madness? Or is March Madness inevitably going to be deeply affected? Because that's a whole nother thing. Because if this Power Five thing happens the way that we all think that it's going to happen, then that essentially affects how March Madness unfolds. Because now it becomes a different thing, right? It's not we're gonna.
Well,
how do you do it? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I think the conferences will expand. I mean, the Power Fives are going to have like a ridiculous amount of teams in each.
Maybe
conference.
20 teams in every conference.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whatever the case may be. So you won't totally have all the mid majors left out, I don't think. But you're not going to see was it Loyola Chicago?
They're out.
Yeah, you're not going to see that either.
They're out. Yeah.
You're talking about basketball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see that formula changing no time soon because of the money that is driven from top down. Because you think about, who was the school from New Jersey that was in it? Yeah, you think about St. Peter's. I mean, every year there's some form of a St. Peter's. And so with that money that St. Peter's made for their conference, goes a long ways to helping that conference and those schools, which keeps them afloat in some form of fashion. From the football part of it, now I could see that getting divided up from, Power Five to mid-major, having their own, pot of whatever, a playoffs type deal, which that's what they've been trying to do anyway, because they're not getting a fair shake at the
chance for a
championship as we speak. The only team that's kind of cracked that code has been Cincinnati as of late. And so I don't see the football and basketball splitting like entities in some form, because now you're talking about colleges having to split away from, sports on college campuses having to split from each other and that is a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, shout out to my favorite coach, pull quote coach Mike Leach, who somehow was able to weave the Derby winner Rich Strike into a thematic lesson for all of us, saying, "Look, Rich Strike got a chance at the last minute to get in the Derby. See what happens when you let an underdog." Well done, Mike Leach. Well done. We always count on you to pull something together. But I do think there's something there in what you're saying, Charlie, because it didn't even dawn on me until you said it. Maybe there's a way to take the mid-majors, and I don't know about creating a conference, but maybe the Notre Dame model of an independent type thing where they have their own thing, but they're independently being drawn out into. I don't know. It's a weird.
Maybe
it's
they
the
can
same.
do like what soccer does. Like, if like a bottom rung team in one of these Power 5 conferences, if they're terrible, they go down to the lower conference, and the champion of that smaller conference moves up. Maybe come up with that model. I think they should do that with football.
Well, Division II and Division III have their, tournaments. What's the other one? FCS.
Yeah.
FCS. I think they have their, 16 playoffs as well. Not FCS, but
yeah, no, Division 1, 2A, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't see why the mid majors can't do something like that. I know they want to jump in with the big boys to have an opportunity, but I'm at the point where, why can't we have our own like little same size schools, competing for a championship? Because at this point they hadn't let us into, the 8A class. So let's just go classes. They hadn't let us in the 8A class, and we're 7A. We're not as big as them.
Model, yeah,
we're not as big as them, but at least give us a chance to win a championship.
Right,
at our level.
Like the Bellarmins of the world, who still not allowed to play in the NCAA tournament. I mean,
shout out to our guy Scotty D.
they should be able to play for something.
The challenge of that though is financial, and this is the business model. Can we put them on a stage for that championship to where the money maybe isn't exactly the same, but it's close. If we came to see Beyonce, we at least got a chance to see her, right? You know what I'm saying? It's the warm-up act is just as good as the main stage. So I'd be in favor of that. I'd be in favor of a Western Kentucky versus Western Michigan State.
The only thing you're gonna run into though is just the interest in ratings. I mean,
and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's the money part of it that gets tricky because it's not the same draw. And so how do you, from a TV perspective, Charlie, you okay? We'll make sure Charlie Ward is okay before we
make sure Charlie didn't fall out of his chair or something.
Right. Charlie?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. All right. We're doing that, bro. That is not the podcast moment we're trying to have here today, Charlie.
We're not trying to be the news.
Right.
Hey, but one of the things is, I mean, you just mentioned that they have 2,600 student athletes in the transfer portal.
Right.
So with those 2,600 students, I don't know if that's football or basketball or what it is, but hopefully that's
all across the board. Yeah.
Depending upon how many football, probably more football than anything. If I was some of these mid-majors, I would go and start picking those student athletes up to help build my brand, so that I could compete at the highest level. I think some of them are doing it. I think most of them are doing it at this point. Because if they're still in the portal at a certain point, I mean, they got to make a decision. And so, I mean, that's where you should look at it if you're a mid-major.
And I think also
trying to build
with this transfer portal madness, I think for the mid-majors, you know, a 3A athlete that would have gone to a major, you know, one of the major conferences now, they may be more available to you now. You're not going to be the 5 and 4 stars are still going to go to the big schools, but the 3-star athlete who's probably good, some of them might be just as good as a 4-star. They just didn't have the exposure or whatever.
Right.
They could end up at mid majors, and you can build your brand that way.
But again, first of all, both of you are 1,000% correct. The challenge again is the other part that we don't talk. We're still, that makes it all murky, which is that NIL piece. Can I essentially benefit from going to Western Michigan? Yeah, I know I can walk into Western Michigan and start, but is there enough local deals and regional deals that I can do to justify me not going to a lower or higher mid-major or even, you know, one of the big boys?
Okay.
And you can only go where they want you to.
Let me just say this, because this was driving me up a wall right now with all of this with all this stuff, man. It's just so disheartening.
Let's single them out for this. This seems like it's gonna be good. Go ahead.
No, it's not gonna be good. This is the thing that's going on, because, you know, in this day and age, everyone wants to be guaranteed something without. Not say everyone, but a lot of people want to be guaranteed something without putting forth whatever it is they're wanting, based upon what they've done in the past, even though they haven't done it on the same level,
right?
On the level that they're going. And I totally get it, but at some point we have to prove our worth, and that's in any business. You may come in at one point knowing, just like a lot, you know, coaches that come in with big paydays in some form of fashion, and if they're not doing their what the contract says as far as wins and losses, they're out. And so the expectation is high, you know, coming in based upon what people have been giving you. And, you know, what I'm hearing from some of these coaches that are recruiting kids today, certain kids, that's like they're talking about the school, they're talking about, you know, all the different things, but at the end, they said if you don't talk NIL, then you don't have a chance to recruit certain type of kids. And which I totally get, totally understand it, but that shouldn't be the determining factor. In my book, it shouldn't be the determining factor on whether you go to that school or not. Because it has to be more. That can be a conversation, but sometimes kids, that's what they're expecting. Like, if you don't talk NIL, then they don't even want to listen.
Right.
And when I'm you know, helping kids through this, through and mentoring them, you know, I just tell them, man, hey, don't let that be the driving force to your decision-making process, because there's a lot of other things that should go into that. And even if they don't talk NIL, you know, go and earn your opportunities, you know, and when you earn those opportunities, they will come. You'll probably earn, right. You'll probably get more.
Right. I think about that because I just talked to Purdue's head coach Jeff Brom yesterday. He was in town yesterday, and I talked to him and I asked him about NIL. And you know, he's like, you know, it's out of control. He's like, but it's one of those things like you have to adjust and you have to go along with it because you still have to recruit, and as long as that's there, you gotta adjust. You gotta stay ahead of the game. But he's just fiery on the field and fiery when it comes to coaching. But when it comes to that type of stuff, he's kind of reserved on it. He's not gonna go too much into it. But you think about a school like Purdue, for example, great school, especially for engineering. It's a Big Ten school. You're getting a Big Ten education, but how much NIL can they really afford in West Lafayette, Indiana?
I mean, the local pizza place
can do in West Lafayette, Indiana.
Right. The local pizza place, a couple of car dealerships. What are we talking about right now?
Right. Yeah. I don't know if you've been to West Lafayette, Indiana. I've been there once.
Not a lot there.
There ain't a whole lot there.
Right.
And this is a Big Ten school, so you got to wonder about schools like that, because they're not like, because Duke's small campus too, but Duke's Duke.
Yeah,
but
those schools are going to get still going to get their kids, the same type of kids that they've been getting. Of course, some of them may slip here and there, but those types of schools are going to continue to get the same quality players that they're getting probably today, because they're getting certain types of kids. They're not, if y'all understand what I mean, they're not getting your
right.
They're not getting 5 stars.
It's like Milt Wagner said, they're a smart school.
So they're going to get a certain type of kid. Yeah. And so there's only a few schools, some certain schools in there.
They're in a limited pool, Charlie.
Yeah, they're in a limited pool.
They're limited pool. But I want to highlight something that you said, because I think it was a key component to this conversation. We're talking about, and I wrote down a phrase I think encapsulates the challenge. We're talking about the challenge between the delusion of what you've actually done, because you think you've really done something in high school. I'm the man, but
a lot of them aren't even the man in high school. What they think.
Right. It's like, but we can fool ourselves into thinking, because of our circles and our situations, into thinking that we're owed something that we're not necessarily, especially at 18. That's not a hard thing to do at all, to fool yourself into that. Mm-hmm. And we're measuring that versus the reality of where we actually are. And there's got to be at some point a bubble burst to both of those things, right? Because we can't keep going down this path of potential, and then because here's the other side. What happens when the first 5-star, who was decent in high school and had put up some things, won a state championship, blah blah blah, goes and signs this big NIL deal, only to be a colossal failure in college?
And it's bound to happen.
It's eventually going to happen.
I mean, in some cases, it's already happened. I mean,
and it's failure. And Kendrick, I definitely want you to jump back in. It's not failure based on he doesn't have a college career that's okay. It's failure in that he doesn't meet the expectations of the money that is paid to him, and what they thought they would get back in return with his whatever.
Right, and Charlie's talked about this before in the past, that it's gonna get to a point to where players gonna be like, "Yo, I'm struggling. I need the ball more. I need more minutes to be able to fulfill these NIL obligations." And Charlie talked about that the very first time we had this conversation.
What's the kid's name that was the starting quarterback at Oklahoma last year? Spencer Rattler. Perfect example. Comes into the season, Heisman Trophy candidate. Everybody's, they got him right next to Bryce Young. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Halfway through the season, he's on the bench.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You think his NIL people were disappointed that, man, we put all this money into you and you're on the bench? Right. We can't get any promotion from that.
It's added pressure on these kids like Bryce Young, for example. All the money he had before he even stepped foot on the field, thank goodness he performed.
Right.
He didn't perform.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was my thing from the beginning of the season. Like, man, that's a lot of pressure for a 19-year-old kid.
Well, he's very poised. You saw that on the field, and in his life, he's just he's
He's balanced.
poised.
He's
He's
very
an
Yeah,
exception
he-
to the rule, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Very
He's
much
an
so.
exception to the rule, and not as many student athletes have the backing or surround the people surround him around
Matter of
him
fact,
to be
Charlie,
able to help him.
I'll give you the example of what the rule is Amani Bates.
Perfect example.
Number
Well,
one recruit in the country.
let's stay there for just a second because
Oh yeah,
this is an interesting situation that's happening in Louisville. Everything that we're talking about is happening in real time at the University of Louisville because we're talking about a team who was on no ranking board whatsoever for next year, pre-ranking board for next year, was not even on a ranking board for the ACC, like not thought to necessarily be that competitive going into next year's ACC basketball. All of a sudden, could be in the next couple of months a top 10 team.
If they get Bates, they're going to be at least top 15.
Right. If they get Bates. Well, if the blueprint of what it appears is coming, because there's like two or three guys in the transfer portal. If they all come, we're talking about a top 10 team now, and it's all centered around Kenny Payne's obviously very unique recruiting style. Which whatever that is, I don't know what he's doing or what they're saying.
Hey, you're pointing out that it's an Adidas school that's hired nothing but Nike people.
I merely bring notes to something that we've talked about here on this show because I just wasn't sure how that was supposed to work. How an Adidas guy or a Nike guy would recruit so well at an Adidas school, but apparently it's working quite well. So, do you guys have any problem with that? Like this overnight shift in this? What are your thoughts on that? Because this is quite fascinating, if you ask me. It's quite fascinating.
I'm just going off my experience as a coach. One of the things that I've come to
as a state championship winning coach, by the way, you have to always
state championship win. We got to put that in front of your name, just like we have to put the
we got to give you your proper adjectives.
Right.
Whatever. My team last year, we didn't have as many quote unquote college ready or college players in the sense of I think we will have as many because they're just younger. But we had uber talent. We had like 10, 11 guys the year before. Not last season, but the year before. Mm-hmm. We had about 10 to 11 guys that could really play, probably college ready. And some of these guys were from this year as well. But that was one of the toughest teams to coach because we had so much talent and they didn't want to buy into certain roles. And so one of the things when you're constructing a team, as we've probably seen with some of the Cal teams and even some of the Duke teams, mm-hmm. You get to a certain point where you have so much talent, these guys have to buy into certain roles. And if they don't, you run into the chemistry issue where it just doesn't work. And so it takes a great coach to be able to bring a certain type of culture, a certain type of player in to be able to fit certain roles in order for things to go. And just getting the best talent is not always the way to go because you have to coach that talent up. And if they're not ready to buy into doing what you've asked them to do or being coachable, man, it is tough. And so I think one of the things that Coach Ham does really, really well is he gets a 4-star or even a 5-star to buy into sitting on the bench or coming off the bench based upon whatever the team model, and they're still getting opportunities in the NBA. Now, he didn't have a bunch of 5-stars, a bunch of 4-stars. He kind of developed some of them, and he tells them what they're supposed to be, what they're gonna do, and not tell them like what they're gonna do, but how the style they're gonna play.
Mhm.
He gets them to play a certain way, and so I'm sitting here, watching and listening to all the different teams that are trying to get the most talent. That talent has to work together. And if they're not willing to work together, then that's like the worst season ever.
Well-
I'm just saying from a coach's perspective, it's the worst season ever when you have talented guys that don't want to buy into a certain role.
And we've saw that unfold in Kentucky a few times now.
Last year
Being the most recent example. But what I'll take that a step further, Charlie. I think you said it so eloquently. But now add in the fact that before I even signed on to this team, I signed a deal somewhere that says I'm the man.
Right.
So now you got me on the bench. Man, this is a problem. So now you're talking about team chemistry. Now you're talking about bitterness and frustration. And you saw the mass exodus at Kentucky this year.
Well, then here's the other part, taking it even step further. Okay, you signed this NIL deal, you're not playing. Now you want to transfer, but guess what? You can't leave because you signed this NIL deal.
You signed an NIL deal. Now you're getting the early lesson in contract negotiation.
So let's just take this to Miami, since this is out there. So how do you rectify Isaiah Wong's bitterness towards this new kid that just came in, is making more money than him, and we're talking about mental health and all these different things? We're adding to this mental health issue, a crisis, by adding this dynamic, which I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen, but we've talked about that this is going to happen because they're teenagers. And then we got adults trying to help them out in this whole mix. And as we all know, who gets in the middle of adult issues? The kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, how does Isaiah Wong, unless he knows the Lord and he understands forgiveness and bygones be bygones and all that kind of stuff, but how does he rectify him and this other kid that just came in is making more money than him? How they going to work together? That's a question for Coach Larinaga on how he's going to manage that piece, because he hasn't said anything. I mean, Miami hadn't come out and said anything on this whole matter, as far as I know. But it's very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how they work together.
2 words. 2 words. Healing retreat. You got to figure out a way to go sit those guys down in a room and have that conversation, have some tough conversations. I mean, I don't think
that like a quick trip to live on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're headed to the Gatlinburg Mountains, or mountains in Gatlinburg, rather, and you're gonna have to sit and have a kumbaya moment. Because I mean, you're 1,000% correct. And guess what? That's gonna happen every year. That's gonna happen every single year. Right. The next guy is gonna get the better deal. You thought Bryce Young's deal was great. This next Alabama 5-star or whatever.
You know what's going to end up happening is the Sam Bradford rule that they hit the NFL with when these quarterbacks kept coming in getting more and more money.
No
and
cap.
the veteran quarterbacks are like, hold up. And then the Sam Bradford deal happens. That's going to come too. There's going to be a cap on what a freshman can make.
And then inevitably, let's keep going down this rabbit hole. Yeah. Somebody's going to challenge that, because they're going to challenge that in court and say, you can't cap my earning potential.
Can't cap my earning potential.
Yeah,
exactly.
So we're in a weird space, man.
Unless it's collective bargaining and all that.
And there's no collective bargaining.
And there's no collective bargaining, right.
And to which eventually the players are going to have a union.
This is unbelievable.
Which to me, I'm still trying to figure out how would you have a union when you have so many student athletes?
They've tried it.
Yeah, I know.
I know, but
who's gonna vote for? I mean, who's gonna do the voting? Like, you have to have a vote on who is the rep, who the reps are, and all those types of things. And when you have like so many student athletes, are they gonna have their own swimming? You know, I mean, break it all down to the different individual sports.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. This is man, this is a rough situation. But
it's interesting though.
It's fascinating, and it makes for great fodder to talk about in forums like this. But it just feels like we're headed towards some places that are going to be wildly uncomfortable. Like, I'm gonna just tell you, and I'm saying this not just as a journalist, or a podcaster, but as a fan. While I'm excited on some level of what Louisville is doing, it is wildly uncomfortable. It's wildly uncomfortable because it's happening so fast.
Well,
like, you go from obscurity
to
relativity overnight.
Louisville's kind of an outlier on the fact that couldn't happen at any school. I mean, there's an advantage to being one of the blue bloods. U of L is considered a blue blood.
And I keep saying that to myself.
It's going to happen that fast.
And I keep saying that to myself. What's happening because you're a blue blood? Yeah.
I mean, just like Kentucky. Look how fast Kentucky. It's eerily similar.
It's eerily similar.
Calipari. When all of a sudden UK went to only having Patrick Patterson to now all of a sudden having John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Daniel Orton.
but the challenge of that is, and I'd love to hear you say something about this as well, Charlie. It feels like that this quick turnaround, this level of recruiting success that goes from, like I said, obscurity, you're just barely getting what you can get, to you have your pick of the litter. It doesn't feel like it comes with sunshine. It feels like it comes with clouds. And that's what makes it weird, because it's like, should I be celebrating this, or should I be nervous that we're just one day away from a massive infraction situation? Like, what?
Well, I really don't think that's the infractions piece. You know, sometimes it's about who it is.
Yeah,
because because Coach Payne has been successful. He's been in college. He's been in NBA. Yeah, he's also surrounded himself with some quality assistant coaches that have done it at high levels in college as well. And so I think a lot of times, you can speed it up with the right person, with the right people. And, I think that plays a big part in this probably quick turnaround. I'm not saying they're going to have success on the court, but in recruiting, you can do it based upon his resume, the resumes that he has, around him. And so.
Smile.
Yeah,
Kenny Payne's smile is going to get him in a lot of front doors.
Yeah. So, I mean, that your name recognition can get you, in doors that most people may not be, first-year coaches may not be able to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
just because of your resume.
Well, listen, it's incredibly impressive. Like, let's not kid ourselves. The fact that in a month or 2 months, however long he's been there, which hadn't been that long, you've been able to crack the code of, relevance for Louisville that they haven't had in 4 years. That's impressive. I mean, that's really, really, really impressive. And it's almost like people forgot about the scandals, forgot about everything, and now, they're the Louisville of old now. And it's
they may have forgotten about them now, but as soon as this games start and they're on ESPN, it's going to be at least 15 minutes of the broadcast is going to be bringing all that stuff up.
Without question. Without question.
I will give. I mean, I've never been one to be really critical of Chris Mack, and I'll give him one one of those big time recruits that Kenny Payne landed was already he was already committed to Louisville under Chris Mack.
Right.
And Kenny Payne got him to stay. And so you hire a staff with Nolan Smith and Danny Manning on it too. I mean,
let's bring a start.
Like Charlie said, I mean, you're bringing in some heavy hitters to be there.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Matter of fact, I got a critique for Danny Manning. Threw out the first pitch at the U of L game yesterday and didn't even throw it from the mound. You got to go to the mound if you throw out the first pitch. He threw it in front of the mound.
That's where most people throw it from.
No, you got to go to the mound, man.
Listen, I get it, but I think that fear of being on ESPN is strong.
But he threw a great pitch. He threw it like somebody not trying to impress anybody. You just throw it.
Hey,
and
that's right.
And he did it perfect.
That's right.
You got to go to the mound, though.
You know why? You know why it was perfect? Hey, you know why it was perfect? Because he threw it in front of the
You got to go to the mound.
You can't mess up the mound.
It's a piece of rubber up there. It'll be fine. Now, Nolan's first pitch the other week did not go so well. But they've been great guys already. They're out in the community. I ran into Nolan at the Derby, and they're out in the community. It's not just like they're there and just you don't see them. You see them out in the community all the time. They're doing a great job already.
You said Nolan's did not go well. Where did he throw his from?
He was at the Bats game, and he threw his from the mound.
And therein lies the problem. He watched Nolan and he said, "I'm not going to be enough."
I respect it.
Well,
he's embarrassed, but you respect it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't want anything to mess up recruiting. So Danny's like, "Nah, I just need to get it across the plate."
Throwing out a first pitch messed up recruiting. They had problems going in.
Everything messes up recruiting. You know that. Any weird story, man. All that stuff matters. All that stuff matters, man.
I'm just glad to see these guys are out in the community and they're not just pulled up and being standoffish. You see that. You see that all the time. But no, they're out there amongst the people, and they've been really good so far. Matter of fact, when I ran into Nolan Smith at the Derby, he's down there with everybody else.
Listen, this has been a fascinating conversation, which is not going away. I'm sure as this thing continues to unfold throughout the year, we will have more of these conversations because the NIL is here to stay, the transfer portal is here to stay, and the complaints of both are here to stay. So we're not going anywhere with any of it. I don't know. We're chopping down new trails for all of this, and I'm not sure where the end result is going to be, but it feels like it's going to be something explosive because how could it not at this point?
Right.
Yeah,
I think we're going to see a total shift in college athletics in the next five years.
Absolutely.
So I have this question.
Yes, sir.
How is it that a legislature can put a law into make a law, and we can't challenge it as individuals, but the NCAA or NFL or NBA or anyone else put in some type of policies, it is always challenged because the people that have to follow the policies didn't have a say at the table. Is it because they have representatives that vote the law into that represent the people when we know sometimes that is not the case for everybody?
The government does whatever it wants.
Okay, so that is my thing with people saying the kids don't have a say in XYZ. Like when the NCAA comes up with some type of legislature, they're saying that the kids don't have representation or say in those deals.
They don't really.
They don't. Right. This is an interesting question you just proposed here, Charlie.
But I'm just saying, are we saying that our representatives who are voting on these bills that most times go into law, that the kids have that we have representatives there to vote for us, is what we're saying. So we have to live with whatever the law is.
I think the difference being that those representatives are voted on, they're voted into office by the people, whereas whoever making the laws in the NCAA, the students don't vote those people in. And
well, I think it's also the interest of both. Like the interest of government is usually centered around private business and political interest and PAC and all that stuff.
Or in Kentucky, the cornbread mafia.
Or the cornbread mafia, right? Whereas in the NCAA, the interest is private business, and maybe it's not any different, is it? It's never the people that feel the policy.
People are voted into office, and the NCAA people nobody knows how they're getting it.
Right, but the interest is still the same because they don't care about who is affected by the policy. They only care about how the policy affects the big. Exactly. So now, how is that possible? I think it's because one, there's no union to challenge it, right?
They do have a student. They do have student leadership council or some form of it that they put in place.
Strong. It's not as strong enough.
Yeah, but it's right. Yeah, it's not. They don't have any power though. Like they're
okay. Hold on.
Go ahead.
So you're saying they don't have any power?
Well, they do, but they don't know that they do. How about that?
Okay, but they're at the table. If you're at the table, then you do have some form of power to be able to state whatever it is from a student perspective. You can state that. And just like I'm on a board and I have a vote, but I also can state things that I may want, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go into action just because I brought it up.
Well, the truth of the matter is, Charlie, to your point, the students have way more power than they think they do, because it's like the kids at Northwestern were saying, we're like the labor force. So technically, you don't have college football if we don't play.
Yeah, so they can easily not play, but that's easier said than done.
But right, I was gonna say the problem is getting 300 schools worth of players on board with that concept. In order to truly make this what we want, we have to truly band together and say we're not playing until the rules change. And then they also got to be in agreement on what the rules are. So,
well, I'll just say this: as a former student athlete, of course, we didn't have any of this. This leeway to be able to transfer like we wanted to be able to make, name, image, and likeness, which I would have loved.
Oh my God!
To be able to do some of these, have some of these opportunities, and I was brought back that I was.
Charlie, if you was a kid today, when you had to punt, you would have transferred.
Probably not, but. And yes, today's kids, that probably wouldn't have. I mean, their minds, I should say, it's not everybody,
right?
But the mindset of the kid today, I'll just say that. Yes, I'd have probably been in the transfer portal because I didn't get a chance to play. And the reason, and I say this, because I wasn't thinking about transferring, but I was talking about me losing a year of eligibility to do something that I didn't sign up for. But that was in my immature state of mind.
But couple that with the fact that Charlie Ward or modern day Charlie Ward was doing something he was asked to that he didn't want to do, and he'd already signed this nice NIL deal with Taco Pete's, and so and so now you're stuck both ways, right? Because you're not really fulfilling the NIL responsibility that you signed for, because you're only on the field for 10 minutes a game.
Well, let me just clarify.
Not even that. We're punting.
As a punter, if I'm doing Taco Peaks, then that means that I'm in today's society, I'll just be doing some like influencing, because you're not going to get no major deals being the punter.
They probably would have pulled your deal that time you tried to hit the roof in Syracuse.
No, that was only one time.
He's like, that was one time. You had to keep bringing that up, Kendrick Haskins.
But I had, but after that, just to kind of piggyback. After that, I played basketball, and it wasn't until my third year, after my third year in school, that I got an opportunity to play quarterback. And so the NIL deals probably would have gotten bigger.
Oh, they've been huge. Yeah.
My senior year.
Yeah.
My last year, because my junior year, I struggled out of the gate, and I was a first year starter. And so the NIL deals probably would have been going out to speak to, local elementary schools or whatever the case may be. It would have been very small, but the deal would have gotten bigger my senior year, going into my senior year, because of what I was able to accomplish my junior year. And that's the reason why I say, sometimes you have to earn your NIL deals. The NIL deals may be smaller at one point during your college career, but they can become much bigger the more you produce. And so you think about Bryce Young this year. I'm sure his NIL deal is probably triple with less.
Making even more money, yeah.
Yes, with less time. So he's probably doing, easy type deals just because he won the Heisman, and he had a very good year last year, and he's going to another year, which is probably his last year in college. Right. And so he'll probably make more doing appearances. This is what I'm saying. 2-hour appearances, he can probably make more now because of what he did last year. And so a lot of times that's not what we're starting to see. We're starting to see these deals come out, big deals come out with players who haven't even touched the field.
Right.
My only challenge of what you're saying is this, and I think you're spot on 100%. The only thing I would add to that is the challenge is always going to be in front of us, because I'm a kid. I'm a poor kid from City X, and my family needs this money right now. To me, the Isaiah Wong, I don't know his family, I don't know his background, but that story reeked of, I need it now. We need it now. We want it now. So that's the other part. We want it now as opposed to we need it now. Where are we on that spectrum, right? So if we're in a dire situation, I'm gonna press harder, maybe even in an uncomfortable fashion, to get what I want because my family has to have it. Or we're just greedy and we think we can act, like you said, we're offended because this kid's making more. He hadn't done half of what I've already done. So it's that weird catch-22 of what you're saying and not being able to be patient enough to allow the thing to unfold. Because Chad asked a great question here at the bottom. He said, well, does the deal expire when you turn pro? And the answer to that is probably yes and no, because yes, it's not the same deal when you turn pro, but if you build a substantial enough relationship like Bryce Young will do with nationally corporate type situations, they're not going to abandon you. This is working. So we just transition the deal into something else. So now it looks and feels different as a pro.
Yeah. Well, I would say rebuttal, but my to add to what you just mentioned about they need it now.
Yeah.
I'm not against that part of it.
Right.
And yes, I think we all need it now. If you're in dire need, straight, whatever the case may be, I think we all desire. I mean, I would love to have more, to be able to help more people, doing what I'm doing.
Right.
Kendrick would like to be paid more. You would like to be paid more. Everybody would like to be paid more for what they're doing. LeBron James, he would never get what he's worth playing basketball.
Right.
He would love to have more because he's worth more, but he understands that there's a cap and all those types of things, and he can't earn what he desires from playing basketball.
Tom Brady, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that's doing things, great things, that's not getting paid what they're worth.
Right.
But what are we doing with what we have? That is my whole thing. If you're making $100,000, what are you doing with that money?
Which is the real problem. Yeah.
Yes, because if you're seeking $400,000 and you're not doing much with the $100,000 except for spending on things that, yes, you may have needs, but are you spending it on needs and wants or just needs and saving some for the wants later and adding that up? And that's my whole, I don't want to say cry, but that's the thing I'm always asking is everybody wants more, but what are you doing with what you have now?
Yeah. That's a great place to pause this conversation because I think the gospel has been preached according to Charlie Ward, and it was good. It was good. I told you it was gonna be a good read. I knew where this was headed. So we do want to give our shout outs before we go. I definitely want to give and send love, and I actually wanted to ask Charlie about this if he had the opportunity to meet this great legend Bob Lanier, who unfortunately passed this week. And we want to send our thoughts and prayers to his family and to the entire NBA family for such a tremendous loss. Did you ever get a chance to hang out with Mr. Bob Lanier? No humble place, just conversation.
When you talk about hang out, like,
or just talk to or meet, and
Yeah, I met all those legend guys in passing in some form of fashion. I know he was heavy into the NBPA at one point, and also the NBA with the league. I think he came around and did some educational courses with that group, and so just unfortunate. He's a great legend, of course. Meant a lot to the game. I just remember the lefty watching him as a kid, which was very, very cool. But definitely sad to see him pass away.
So that's I'll figure that would be our corporate all-inclusive shout out that we would give to Coach or to the former player and NBA Hall of Famer Bob Lanier. But do you guys have any other shout outs? I believe, Charlie, you have a significant shout out that you would like to give.
Yeah, you gave a shout out before the show.
Right. I can't imagine what that shout out would be, or if I received a text from him about the shout out at all.
Yeah.
He gave it a shout out to USC, I think.
Our Lady Seminoles, FSU, won their regional. I think it was yesterday. And so they'll be heading to the national championships. I think it's next week. But shout out to, I think her name is Beatrice Walling. She's from Sweden. and her parents got an opportunity to come down and watch her perform on yesterday for the first time. She's a senior, and so that was cool. And she was actually the regional champion. You know, I think she shot a 6 under.
Oh wow!
You didn't say it was golf.
Yeah, it's golf. My bad, Lady Seminoles golf.
Yeah. Is she gonna turn pro after this senior LPGA and all that good stuff?
I'm sure that's where she's heading. She's 6 under. I'm sure she's heading to the professional ranks.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Right. Always go Seminoles.
Yeah, go Noles. Go Noles.
All right, you got any shout outs?
I'll shout out the city of Louisville. Oaks and Derby went off great. Weather was not great on either day, but we still had over 100,000 at Churchill Downs on Derby Day. I think it was 70 on Oaks Day and over 100 on Derby Day. So shout out. It was good to see the city somewhat back to normal. It's still not 100%, but it was good to have a normal Derby this year. Because it was the coolest thing. And it's one of those things where you see it all the time, so you take it for granted that you're with somebody who's seeing it for the first time. So when the race actually went off, we was at our set that we have on the first turn. And it's myself, Kent Taylor, my sports director, and Connie Leonard, his wife. We're at the Derby every year. We've seen it 100 times. So we were just watching it, and we've had so many new employees come into Wave over the last couple of years during COVID and people going in there. So it was a good 10 people around us that had never experienced Derby before. And so to see the looks on their faces when they sing My Old Kentucky Home and when the horses come around the first turn, it was really cool. So, shout out to the city of Louisville. Shout out to my co-workers who experienced Derby for the first time.
That's cool. That's very cool. Well, speaking of that, they say it's the greatest 2 minutes in sports. I have to say this year, I'm not sure they disappointed at all because it was a really, really impressive race. So I've never given a shout out to a horse before, but shout out to Rich Strike because that was incredible. That was absolutely incredible. And Sonny Leon, the jockey, who steered the thing I didn't know if I was watching the Derby or the Indianapolis 500 the way he weaved through traffic. It was amazing. It was incredible.
And shout out to the trainer, Eric Reed. He's a couple of years ago, he had his barn catch on fire and he lost 23 horses. And
wow.
Yeah. And so to be able to regroup and get back with a horse that it took 2 other horses in front of him to scratch for him to even make the Derby.
Which he found out 30 seconds before the deadline. You can't make this up. What a story.
Literally 30 seconds before the deadline is when he found out he was in.
It was one of the most matter-of-factly moments in the history of sports. Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?
So where's the owner from?
He's from Kentucky.
The trainer?
The trainer is from Kentucky.
Yeah.
And his farm is in Lexington.
Did he do an investigation on why his barns got burned up?
I don't think it was any foul play. I think it was I forget what the story because I remember when it happened. But yeah.
Well, you know me.
I know. I know it wasn't foul play, Charlie.
Journalistic Charlie.
You might need to check on that because he finally get an opportunity, and his horse barn burn up, and he lose some horses.
Well, he didn't have that horse at the time.
I'm just saying.
Only 3 years old.
when we start investigating horses that win and all that kind of carrying on.
And just for you, Charlie, it was released yesterday that all the horses' drug tests came back clean. All.
Well, I'm happy to hear that.
Everybody.
Good.
Hilarious.
Even though the horse won the Derby, he was trying to bite the pony afterwards.
Yeah. The horse had some mental issues, but at least he can run straight. So there you go. So that's all that really matters at this point. Listen, been another fun show. Hope everybody enjoyed it. those of you who are rewatching, I hope you've enjoyed it. We will be back again and do it all over again next week. I don't know if we'll be talking about this, but we'll be talking about something, and you'll enjoy it because it's
Something
what
will
we do.
happen between now and next week.
Something will happen. Something will happen. We'll be here
Next
to tell you about it.
week we'll get Charlie on a humble flex.
We let him slide a lot today. I got to be honest with you. We let him slide quite a bit, and that's fine. That's fine. Like sometimes you just got to ride the wave of the moment, and that's what we did. So, with that being said, that is Charlie Ward, our Heisman Trophy and state championship coach,
And
Go
national
Suns.
championship, and member of a national championship team.
member of a national championship team. He doesn't like to, talk about his contribution, but he was on the team. Right. And then,
would
of
have
course,
been the richest man in Tallahassee. If
would have been
back then.
exactly would have been retro. Maybe there's a way to retroactive some of this stuff. We need to look in deeper into the NIL rules.
My team
Give him
could
40
use,
acres.
The team can use the funds, right? There you
and
go.
my foundation, our
There you
foundation.
go. There you go. We will have a conversation after the show, and then of course that's Kendrick Haskins, the Hall of Famer, just high and drunk on the power of positivity right now. So and so we are glad to have him. I'm Lloyd Spence. We'll see you guys next week. That's not the right outro. You've been listening to Believe in the ACC with Charlie Ward, Lloyd Spence, and Kendrick Haskins. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share from the Noisemakers page on Facebook and on YouTube. And you can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be heard.